Hi there, this is Pranay Sharma and welcome to our R Basics video. Today we are going to tackle vectors. Now a vector is a one-dimensional array. It is a logical element in programming language that is used for storing multiple data. Now if you have studied other programming language, you might know what a vector is, and it is same throughout all programming languages. If not, we are going to see what a vector is. Now whenever we have to store multiple values in a data, we store it in a vector. Now vector is going to be one-dimensional array. That means it is going to store all values in a straight line. Now vector is one of the most important elements in any programming language, and we are going to see it throughout our course. Now first of all, how do we create a vector? Now for creating a vector, we say C and in bracket we put our values. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I press Ctrl Enter, you can see here in the answer, this is an vector. It has stored all the 5 values in separate places. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in separate places of each of them. We are going to see how can we basically call one of those values, and in this video afterwards. Right now we are going to see in how many ways we can create a vector. Now a vector can contain non-numerical values as well. So I can say, let's say I'll store x is equals to another vector C, and in bracket I will say I have male and comma a female. Now when I press Ctrl Enter, my x, you can see here, it is a vector. Now this value CHR, it says it is a character because these are character values, not integer values. Now I'll do one thing, I'll store this as well, y is equals to this, Ctrl Enter, and you can see here it says it is num, that is it is a numerical values. And here you can see it shows our vector's dimension. So we have only one row and we have 2 columns. In Y we have 1 row and we have 5 columns. So these are the dimensions of our vector. It is a straight line. It is one dimensional or one row vector or one row matrice, you can say. And in the first one you can see we have 2 values, male, female. In Y you can see we have 5 values. We usually use numerical vectors because we are doing some kind of arithmetics on those vectors as well. But you can definitely have characters. You can have combination of both as well. You can have numerical as well as characters with you in a vector. Now if we have directly a sequence like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have a better way of doing it. If I say sequence, I'll store it in SEQ. It's just name of my object. You can name it anything. And for a sequence, we write SEQ as our function as well. So one thing I'll do, I'll change the name rather than writing it as SEQ. It might be a little bit confusing. I'll just write S is equals to, and for sequence we have SEQ as our function. Now as I have mentioned before, in any functions inside our brackets we have arguments. Arguments tells what to do with that particular function. So in our sequence, I'll search it here, but in our sequence we can specify a lot of things, from what value to what value the sequence should be and by how much the sequence should change. So I'll just search here SEQ, and you can see here the default method SEQ, the first value that we give is from. So we have from, and whenever they write a particular argument equal to a particular value, that value is its default value. So if you do not specify that argument, it will take this value. So if we just write sequence comma 5 and I press Control Enter, you can see my sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because it took from value as 1, to value as 5 and by value as this. By value is going to be by how much should each value increase. By default it is 1. Otherwise you can specify. So I can say sequence 1 to 5 and then comma by value I can say is, let's say 0.5. You can see here my S value has changed and S value is now 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5 because now each value has a difference of 0.5. The by value is 0.5. So this third argument by is now to 0.5. These are the main arguments that we require in sequence. Now if you want, you can see here we have our length dot out, desired length of the sequence, a non-negative number which for sequence and sequence dot int will be rounded up if fractional. So how many lengths of value do we need? Now let's say if I do not know that what is my final value, I just know that it starts from 1, the difference is 0.5 and I need 20 such values. Now whenever you're not writing arguments in a particular order, like the order written here, you can see sequence is from is first, then second is to, third is by and the fourth is length out. If you're not writing in that sequence, you should specify what the value is. Now 1, because it is the first one and it is from, that is not a big deal. But the second must be 2. To what value our sequence goes to. But right now I don't know that, so I will not specify that. So the second value is my by. So I should specify it as by. So I will say by by equal to 0.5 and then comma I want length dot out. I'll say, as you can see, as I was writing, Rstudio recognized that I am writing length dot out. It gave me an option. I can just press enter if I want that value, or I can go down if I wanted to use some other value. So I want this value. I'll basically press enter. I get length dot out is equals to, I need 20 such values. I'll press Control Enter and here you can see S value is now 1:20. That means we have one row and we have 20 values and we have all of these 20 values. We can press S, Control Enter and you can see all those 20 values. Now I will also tell you how to read this output. This is going to be our answer, that is our output for any kind of code. Now previously you can see here I did not have any output because I was storing my value to that particular object. So it did not need me to give any output. If there is no error, that means that code has run and my value has been stored in that particular that particular object. Now if there is a numerical answer, it will give you numerical answer or a categorical answer. It will write down those as the output. Now you can see this value bracket 1 says that it is the first value. Now the first value, the nearest value 1 is the first value. Now that may not be very necessary to show, but it always shows you that particular value. But as you can see, this 19, because my output could not give me here all 20 values in a straight line, it went to the second line. It is still in a straight line. It is still a vector. It is still only one single line. But as you can see, here the output could not show me all the 20 values in a straight line. It went to the second line. And it is saying that it is the 19th word or 19th object or 19th value. So the nearest value, this 10, is my 19th value. So clearly, if I am counting, I do not need to count all the values, this 1, 2, 3, 4 till to understand that this is the 19th value and this is the 20th value. This is how the output is shown. Now if I squeeze this down and now I press my S, as the space was really low, it had to go to 3 lines, and you can see that my first value contains 9 values, and this shows me that this must be my 10th value. This shows me that it is my 19th value, and this is my 20th value. So this is easier to count. If I want 12th value, all I have to do is, this is 10, this is 11, this is 12, and 6.5 must be my 12th value. So this is how output shows our values if we do not have space. If I had enough space and I press Ctrl Enter, it will just show me all values in a straight line. So this is how output shows us our values. Now let's get back to vector. So this was our sequence. So for sequence, always remember the arguments. First argument is from, the second argument is to, third argument is by how much should we increase, the fourth argument is length out. We usually do not need all 4. We only need 3 of these 4 to actually find our answer. You can have any value of, it is more like an AP, arithmetic progression. It will always increase by a particular value. Now if you are repeating the same thing again and again, we have a repeat command. So if I say t is equals to repeat rep. For repeat we have rep, and we put bracket, and let's say I want to repeat 1 10 times. 1, 10, and t now has 10 values, all of them are 1. You can see that here. If I run t, you will see we have 10 values, all of them are 1. So if you want to repeat all the values to be same, you are going to use this repeat function. You can search it here as well, and you will see that our repeat has x argument, and then the next is times or length out. It is the same thing. So how many times we need that particular value? So this becomes 10. You can write times is equals to 10, but that is not really necessary. You can also repeat non-numerical values as well. I can say repeat Pranay, 5. So it will repeat my name 5 times. So you can make a vector using repeat with non-numerical values as well. Now you can also use all of these things together as well. I can say repeat, I can use x directly, but I will use c, and I'll say a, b, and repeat it, let's say 5 times. You can see I had a vector a, b, and I have repeated that 5 times. That made another vector. So now I have AB 10 times. And if I store this, let's say I'll store it in E. You can see here E has 10 character values, and you can see here AB. So we can use any of these functions inside another function as well. Similarly, I could have used sequence here. Instead of C, I'll use sequence. Now sequence should always have numerical values because sequence of a categorical value does not make sense. So sequence, I'll say 1 to 10 and I'll say by 0.2. I'll not go 1 to 10, I'll go, let's say, 1 to 2. And I'll press Ctrl Enter, and you can see E here has changed to 1, 1.2, 1.4 and so on, and I have 30 values. I'll play this E and you'll see that we have 30 values. First we have 1 to 2, then again 1 to 2, and we have repeated that 5 times. I have this 1 to 2, then another 1 to 2 and so on. We have 5 times. So we have repeated a sequence 5 times. So you can use them with each other to actually make bigger sequences or bigger repeated values or something like that. Next, another way of making our default sequence is going to be, if I want 1 to 5, I'll say 1 is to. For is to, you need colon, and the colon mark is shift and the button, the key besides L. So 1 is to 10. Say Control Enter, and you can see I get 1 is to 10 values. So this is another way of writing our default sequence where it is shifting each value by 1. So I get another vector value. So for creating vector, we have a default way, that is C and then putting each value, separating each value by comma. We have sequence. We have another way of making sequence when each value is shifted by 1. In this way, you can write sequence, any sequence. I can have 220 colon 120. Rather than 120, I'll say 200. And I'll get 220, 219, 218 till 200. You can see I went backwards, but each time it is changing the value by 1. So this is a sequence where our by is 1. Then we had repeat. If we are going to repeat a particular number, a particular string or a particular character or a particular sequence, by how many times? So these are different ways of making vectors. Now what can we do with these vectors? Now if it is a numerical vector, we can do a lot of things. With categorical vector, not much, but with numerical vector, we can do a lot of things. We can do almost all the arithmetics that we have done before in a particular vector. Now I'll just remove all of this. I'll just keep y. I'll remove everything from here, our global environment. Also remove, clean my console. Now I have y. I'll press Ctrl Enter. Now you can see my y is 1 to 5. Now I can add a particular value to y. If I say y plus 2, I press Ctrl Enter. You can see I have added each value to all of these particular values of my vector. I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have increased it by 2. Similarly, I can subtract as well. I can say y minus 5. And you can see minus 4 to 0. I directly ran it into the console. That can be also done, but I do not have any note for that particular code here. So that is okay if we are just learning. Then we can do multiplication. I can say y into 4 and now each value is multiplied by 4. I can divide. I can say y divided by 2, and you can see each value has been divided by 2. In this way, we can do any of the arithmetics to our values, our vector, and each value will be doing the same. I can have y raised to 2 square of each values, and you can see each value has been squared. I can take square root as well, and it makes another vector with whatever arithmetic that we have done. Now we can use two vectors to do the same thing as well, but those vectors should be of the same length. So I'll create another vector x. Above this, I'll say x is equals to, and this vector I'll say is 2, 4. Now instead of just writing C, I can make it into a sequence. I'll say sequence 2 is the starting value. I do not know how many till what value I want, but I know that I want 5 values only, because we said our length should be equal to the vector that we have already there. So I'll say 2 comma, I'll say by, change by 2. So that means it will skip a value. So I'll have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and I want length out to be equal to 5. I'll press Ctrl Enter. It will run x, and you can see I have another vector here x, 1 to 5 values, and it is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. If I add y plus x, I get another vector, and you can see each value has been added. The first value is 3 because it added 2 plus 1. The second value is 6 because it added 4 plus 2. You can see here each value's corresponding values, and we can add them up, we can multiply, we can divide, we can subtract. So in this way we can do arithmetic operations on our vectors. Now what if I want only one single value from my vector? So for a single value, my vector is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is our y. If I say y and my square brackets, and if I want the third value, I will say my square bracket 3, Control Enter, it gives me 3. Similarly, if I want fifth value of x, I will say x square bracket 5, Control Enter, and you can see it gives me 10. In this way, I can do arithmetic operations on that as well, because they are numerical values. If they were not numerical values, then I would not have been able to do it. So let's say if I want to add up my second value of y with my fourth value of x. So I'll say y square bracket 2 plus x square bracket 4. Control Enter. And you can see 10. My second value of y was 2 and my fourth value of x was 8. So clearly we got 10. You can also choose multiple values here and it will make another vector. If I say I want to choose first three values of x, so I'll say x bracket 1 is to 3. I'll press Ctrl Enter. I get 2, 4 and 6. Or if I want only first, third and fifth value, I'll say x and I'll write a vector. So I'll say c, and in the vector I'll have 1, 3, 5. So I'm saying of that x vector, I want only first, third and fifth value. So I have to represent that as a vector as well. And when I press Ctrl Enter, you can see that it is only giving me the first, third and the fifth value of that vector. Again, these are all represented as a vector as well, unless and until it is just one single value. When we were only taking one single value into consideration, it was like a numerical value. But when we are writing it as multiple values, it becomes another vector. We can store it as well into some other object. Other than this, if I want all the elements, all the values except for 1, we can do it as well. If I say I want all values of y except for the third value, I'll say y bracket -3. If I press Ctrl Enter, you can see it skipped the third value and it gave me 1, 2, 4, 5. Similarly, if I want to skip 2 values from x, I'll say, let's say I want to skip second and fourth value, or let's say here I'll say second and fifth value. So I'll say x, again square brackets, I'll say minus of c, and in bracket I will have second comma 5, 2 comma 5. Again Control Enter, and you can see it skipped the second value and it skipped the fifth value. So the minus sign represents we do not want that value. We can also use logic. We can say our y is less than this value, our y is greater than this value, our x is less than this value, x is greater than this value. I'll make a very big vector for that. I will say my a is equals to, let's say 1 is to 20. So here I have 1 to 20 all values. So I can say I want a values such that a is less than 5. And you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I can have a such that a is greater or equal to 15. If I say greater or equal to, this is how we will write it, greater sign and then equal to sign. Similarly, less than equal to as well. And it is 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. If I want not equal to, I can also specify that. I'll say a not equal to. So for not equal to, we always put our exclamation mark first. So exclamation and then equal to sign. This is the sign for not equal to. In any programming language or most programming language, if you want to specify not equal to, this is how you will specify not equal to. So not equal to, let's say I'll make a vector, it should not be equal to, or I'll just write one single value, not equal to, let's say 17. And when I press Ctrl Enter, you can see it has all the values except for 17. You can check that. So we are saying these are the logical ways, or using logic we can select one value or a few values from a particular vector. Right now in this video we'll end it here about vectors, and in future videos we are going to see how we use those vectors.